Good evening. I'm Janet Ott. I'm the moderator for this evening's forum, and I'm representing the League of Women Voters of Bellingham and Whatcom County. Founded in 1920, the League is a nonpartisan organization with more than 700 affiliates in all 50 states. Our goals are to encourage informed and active participation in government, increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influence public policy through education and advocacy. The League never endorses candidates or political parties. Membership is open to all people age 16 and older, and we invite you to join. Tonight's forum is being recorded, and the recording will be available on our website, the League of Women Voters of Bellingham and Whatcom County, the City of Bellingham YouTube channel, and will be shown also on BTV Bellingham. No portions of this forum may be rebroadcast in part or in full without the written consent of the League of Women Voters. Questions for this forum have been prepared in advance by the League with input from the public. Attendees may submit a question using the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and we will ask as many questions as time permits. Tonight, we are hosting candidates Ken Bell and Kelly Krieger, who are running for the office of Port of Bellingham Commissioner, District 2. Port commissioners are elected to 4-year terms, and the office is nonpartisan. The 3-person board oversees all Port of Bellingham operations by providing policy direction and decisions in public meetings. So candidates, here are the rules. Each candidate may make a 2-minute opening statement and a 1-minute closing statement. By alphabetical order, candidate Bell will be going first for both opening and closing statements. Each candidate will be asked the same questions, and you'll have up to 90 seconds to answer. I will alternate who goes first each time. You also each have an orange challenge card, which you may use to challenge your opponent's response 1 time. Just raise your card. You'll then have 30 seconds to present your challenge, and your opponent will have 30 seconds to respond. To help track your time, when you begin to speak, that purple timer screen will start counting down, and then it'll turn yellow when you have 15 seconds remaining. The screen will turn red when your time is up. If you continue to speak when the screen is red, I will ask you to stop. So any questions regarding the rules, candidates? Okay, we'll start then. So candidate Bell, please give us your 2-minute opening statement. And unmute yourself.
Again, you'd think with all of the stuff that we've done that this would be rote by now, but it's not. Can I get a reset?
Go ahead.
All right. During the last forum, you heard about my accomplishments and what I want to continue to do here at the port. Now let me tell you why so many are jumping in to help me. Democrats like Pinky Vargas, Bobby Briscoe, Jim Kyle, Dominic Zervis, Kelly Linville, along with the Whatcom County Firefighters Association, the Commercial Fishermen's Association, and civic leaders like former County Executive Jack Louse, all the small city mayors, including Scott Courtheis and Greg Hansen. They've all endorsed me because they understand that the port needs a balance between a healthy environment and a strong economy, and they go hand in hand. Protecting the environment, those are not just words in a speech to me. They mean something because I've actually done this work, and they mean something to the people who put their trust in me. I've spent my entire career focused on finding the correct balance. My company, Best Recycling, was responsible for keeping the most pristine place on the planet, Antarctica, pristine. Every spill cleaned up from the largest to the smallest, all hazardous waste. Those darn scientists, they create a bunch. Food waste, recyclables, non-recyclables, sewage sludge, everything had to come off the continent. All of this was managed by my company. The material was loaded onto a ship and brought to several different ports around the US. I sold that company in 2018 to a First Nations tribe in Alaska. And that's another example of how my work experience dovetails directly with the duties of the port, understanding and working with First Nations. Today, I own a company that has patented 3 different technologies to decontaminate soil in difficult locations. And we return that soil back to its original location. We're currently working on a major cleanup in Glacier National Park, and we've done cleanups for the Corps of Engineers, Chevron, Shell, and 2 massive spills for the Canadian government and Yukon territories. I've done the work, got my hands dirty, driven the trucks, loaded the ships, and brought order out of chaos. That's what I'm good at. And that's why my experience is the right fit for the Port of Bellingham. Looking for your vote. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Candidate Krieger, your opening statement, please.
Thank you. Thank you for hosting this event. I really appreciate this opportunity. I've lived in Bellingham for 16 years. During that time, I've seen an amazing amount of opportunity for economic development in Bellingham. I think we have a lot of unrealized potential here, and I'd love to see us realize that potential. I have a strong background in business. I've worked for multinational corporations, and I've also had 2 small businesses of my own. So I understand business from both sides. I really understand the threats that small businesses have felt during the pandemic. So one thing that is part of the mission of the port is to create sustainable economic development for our county. And quite honestly, I think we could do a lot better with the sustainable part of that development. The first thing we need to do is to recognize that our economy is very different than it was 50 years or 100 years ago. We're never going to have the resources that we had to extract at that time, and we're rapidly cutting ties with fossil fuels. And this is a good thing, but we need to recognize that our economy is different, that it's now an economy of diverse small businesses, small manufacturing businesses, innovative tech firms, and agricultural concerns, especially in my district, District 2, which is largely agriculture. The other thing we need to recognize is that we need a plan for weather events. We've known for years that we were going to have weather events that would threaten our economy, and we've done nothing. We've also known for years that we had a water resource that was going to be threatened, and we've done nothing to protect our economy from that. We need to address those things, and we need to address them quickly. We've been aware of all these factors for years, but we just haven't done enough, and I think we all know that we need to. It's past time to do that, and I want to be a part of that. Thank you.
Thank you. The first question is, the mission of the port includes organizing transportation gateways. What role do you think the port has in mitigating impacts of rail traffic? And Candidate Bell, your response, please.
Making sure my mic is up. First and foremost, we need to mitigate the noise because the railroad crossings clearly have an impact on their neighborhoods. And that's something we've been working on over the last few years. Unfortunately, we don't have a willing partner in the BNSF. They want us to do it all ourselves. But on that note, I think what the port just passed 2 weeks ago was we created a shipping lane that goes all the way from Southern California all the way up to the coast. And by putting more containers on barges, you're going to save fuel. You're going to cut down the carbon footprint. You're going to be able to handle more material at the port, and you're going to be able to offload more containers in a shorter period of time. I think that marine highway designation for the Port of Bellingham was absolutely critical to cutting down the amount of road traffic we have and the amount of rail traffic we have for cargo. That marine highway system is going to be a boon to our laborers, to our workforce, and to those around us. I think the rail is a critical component to our port. I do think we're going to need to have the ability to ship containers off the port. So I would support, and I will continue to lobby, as I have the last 4 years, for a rail spur into our shipping terminal to make sure that we can move traffic out. I see the future of rail in this community as being more cargo, as it should be, more job related, and more loading and unloading in our port facilities.
Okay, thank you. Candidate Krieger, your response, please.
So if I understand the question correctly, it's about the noise from rail traffic. It's an interesting question because we have cargo one way or the other. We either have a maritime shipping lane, we have rail traffic, or we have trucks, and they all come with their disadvantages. There's a lot of noise from trucks. There's a lot of infrastructure breakdown from trucks. Trains obviously make a great deal of noise, but we also have to consider the dangers inherent in a shipping lane. which is we have to consider our fragile marine environment and our orca population and our crabbing population. These are all things that important parts of our economy rely upon, and we treasure our natural resource. So again, I think it would have to be, it's not going to be one thing or the other. I think we made a huge progress when we stopped having coal trains. We stopped the coal trains from coming through. That was big. But we do need to have trains for shipping cargo. And so I don't think that is going to stop. I'm all for noise ordinances to reduce the noise. I know many cities have been successful in eliminating the whistle blows at every stop, and I think we should try to do the same thing. But cargo, unless we're willing to give up all the things we like to have, is going to continue in one way or another.
Okay, thank you. Question number 2. What, if any, improvements or development projects on port-owned properties outside the Bellingham waterfront area would you advocate for, and why? Well, and candidate Krieger, we'll start with you. Your response, please.
Are you talking about building developments?
Just any development projects or improvements outside waterfront.
I would absolutely advocate that the port be involved in providing low-income housing. One of the most important jobs of the port is to create that sustainable economic development. And I think we all know that we don't have a sustainable housing price in this market. We can't employ our talent from our educational institutions right now because they can't afford to live here. So I think creating affordable housing options would go a long way. And I see this as something the port can have a big impact on. Aside from that, I'd like to see us develop some support system for our agriculture. I'm really concerned about our agriculture sector, which, as I said before, is most of my district. That is the economy here, and it's an important part of our economy. We saw them struggle. We saw them suffer during the heat wave. We're going to see them struggle more when we have water shortage. I'd like to develop some sort of place where we can learn about what crops that we can have to sustain us during times of drought, what crops that farmers can use to sustain us during heat waves. I see some big changes coming in that direction.
Okay, thank you. Candidate Bell, your response, please.
I'm going to have to agree with Kelly on a few of these. First and foremost, I think the farming community needs our support more than ever. And I think the best thing we can do is help them get their materials to market. The port has a tremendous role in making sure that we've got things ready for companies when they do come in. And I call it my toolkit. The port has got a responsibility to make sure that we have site-ready pads available in communities. So when a company comes looking for a place to go, we're ready to handle it. The reason we have an electric bus company in Ferndale, for example, is because we had a site-ready pad in Ferndale that could handle all of the things that electric bus company wanted. Had we not had that, we would not have received that company to come in the door. We just bought a huge crane for the shipping terminal. Those are the kind of things that we need to have in our toolbox in order so that a company, when they come in, sees us as an opportunity and not as lacking something going forward. We need that in our agricultural community, as in opening up shipping lanes and in assistance from them, absolutely. But we also need it around the county in other areas. When we talk about affordable housing, the port can play a role in trying to make sure that we get the infrastructure in place to make sure that those communities that are building low-income housing have an incentive. I see that as a role. I see the port having a role in childcare. I would love to talk to our local. We've got one on the waterfront that does healthcare already. Why not add daycare to that mix? Critical component.
Okay, thank you. The next question. Do you support expanding the number of Port Commission districts and commission members to 5 from the current 3? If yes, why? If no, why not? Candidate Bell, your response, please.
This is the question I have been most asked, and I will say it is the question that I have spent the most amount of time talking, debating, and discussing with colleagues. I went into this election in favor of a 5-member commission. I I don't believe at this juncture that it is necessarily as beneficial as I did when I first went in. And I think the same happened to Mike McCauley when he was here at some point. I believe in transparency. I believe that the fact that a port commission has to do all of our business in public is beneficial to the public. I see a commission where you can bifurcate the commission into separate groups as being a place where you take the attention of the executive director and you divert it from one of doing the business of the port to one of figuring out which political alliance he's got going in what direction. Those things I think are dangerous to a port commission. If we do our business in public, and it has to be in public now with 3 commissioners, 2 of us cannot talk without it being in public. I think the transparency is incredible. I think once you start to cut backroom deals, as soon as you get 2 together at a coffee shop, they can cut a deal, and before you know it, you've got a decision on the Port Commission that's a fait accompli without the input of anybody understanding the rationale behind it. So for that reason and that reason alone, I'm not in favor of expanding the port. The second reason, I don't have enough time.
Thank you. Candidate Krieger, your response, please.
Well, I am definitely in favor of 5 commissioners. I would love to see it expand to 5 commissioners. And I have a lot of reasons for that. I think there's a tremendous amount of work to do, and I want to do the best possible job that I can for my constituents and for my community as a port commissioner. In order to do that, I will find it helpful to reach out to other members of leadership in the community, to county council, to city council, to our Lummi Nation, to my constituents, and to other members on my port commission, as well as the port staff. I see this, I'm a very big collaborator. That's how I work. I work by engaging other people and collecting ideas and developing creative solutions by listening and working together with other people. So I see that as a really, really important thing that we can do for the Port Commission. We have so much opportunity here with working with local education institutions to bring those talented graduates to work here so they don't leave our county. We got a really big grant. The community college got a really big grant to develop a cybersecurity thing. That's something that we should take the time to work with and help that be employable in our county. There's another brand new grant that just came out that's going to help our STEM programs. And that's really important to have in our county. I want to have the time to reach out and help develop all these amazing resources for our county. And I want to be able to do it with other people.
Okay, thank you. Next question. What actions should the port take to address the effects of rising sea levels? And we'll start with you, Candidate Krieger.
Thank you. The effects of weather changes are a really big part of this campaign. I see all these things as things that we have waited far too long to address. We have known for decades that things were going to change. We have known to expect rising sea levels. We have known to expect warmer temperatures and more severe storms. It has been irresponsible of us not to address these things sooner. These are definitely factors that affect our economy, and they definitely affect the sustainability of our economy. I think we need to pay careful attention going forward to developing plans that will help our community the next time this happens. And it isn't if this happens, it's the next time it happens. And this includes buildings on our shoreline. We are a coastal community. We have buildings and we have infrastructure on our shoreline that will be affected. We have vulnerable populations on our shoreline that will be affected. I think we should be particularly concerned about our agricultural community that will be affected and has already been affected. We all know that the heat wave caused some of our farmers to lose up to 35%. We know that many, many shellfish died. And we know that we're planning a big condo development on the waterfront. I think we know that's not a good idea.
Okay, thank you. Candidate Bell, your response, please.
My response is simple. We've already started. We put the largest publicly owned solar panel project on the port property at the ferry terminal, and that's just the beginning of our of our attempts to try to make it better. We're also making sure that we put electrified vehicle charging stations, not only in our office buildings, but in our airport and in other public locations that we control. The port has been very aggressive in making sure that we do our part to cut down our carbon footprint. And that includes improving transportation corridors and anything else that's in our toolbox. By that same token, we spent a substantial amount of money improving our shoreline, and we intend to continue to do so. Over the last 4 years, we have improved projects at all of our docks. We've improved projects along our shoreline to make sure that they can handle the impacts of any kind of weather-related storm that we hope would come our way. Is it good enough? We won't know until we see the storm, but we are doing the best science we can. We have the best engineers on the project. We have the best environmental scientists in our port staff. I will tell you, our port staff is second to none when it comes to an environmental division, and we will always take their advice when it comes to how do we shore up our shoreline and how do we improve our carbon footprint.
Thank you. Okay, Candidate Krieger, you want to make a challenge?
I got to get the dog.
Challenge question?
I do. There is no climate action plan on the port website. It is currently under construction. I've been to Blaine Harbor in the last few days, and I've seen docks that probably couldn't withstand human traffic at times, much less a severe weather event. So I disagree that the best has been done.
Okay, thank you. So Candidate Bell, you have 30 seconds to respond.
So what she is seeing is what has happened over the last 20 years to our port. She is not taking into account what this port has done over the last 4 years and the amount of money we have put into infrastructure. And what she's also lacking is the knowledge of what it takes to put a permit on those ports to make those infrastructure changes. Between the challenges by the tribes, between the permitting process with the state, it takes time. This port has done more to shore up that infrastructure than any port in the last 2 decades.
Okay, thank you. This is the last question. Do you support low-cost, publicly delivered broadband in Whatcom County? And if so, how and when can it be implemented? So your response, please, Candidate Bell.
Yeah, so I believe that the public sector needed to be involved early in this process to put our backbone in place. That was the mission of the port back in 2018, 2019. We wanted to make sure that we had the infrastructure in place so that when it came time to do the last mile, we had taken the big bite, which we did. We now have 2/5 of that backbone done. We're now in the process of trying to figure out what is the best technologies to reach every home. There are places where I believe the public sector is going to need to be involved. There are places where I don't think it's going to need to be involved. There are places where the private sector will very easily take over because there's enough homes being developed, especially with the incentives we're putting on the table for workforce and low-income housing. Some of those incentives include putting in the infrastructure for the broadband and for public utilities. With those incentives in place, the private sector will certainly come in and spend their own money to grab that customer base, and it won't cost the taxpayer money. In places where that's not going to happen, it probably will be the public sector that needs to step in. I don't see the Port of Bellingham being that vehicle. I see the PUD being that vehicle. The port has no interest in being a retail provider. At least this commissioner has no interest in seeing the port be a retail provider of broadband or internet access. But I do see a role for the PUD in that space.
Thank you. Candidate Krieger, your response, please.
Yes, I think that our county's approach and our county's speed at which we've addressed this issue has been unacceptably slow. We've all seen other counties, we've seen Anacortes and we've seen rural Jefferson County begin to develop these public networks and be years ahead of us in terms of economic development because of it. We like to think that the pandemic is what caused this problem. The pandemic didn't cause this problem. This problem was here way before the pandemic. You just have to ask anyone who's lived in our foothills regions, as I have, that the problem has been there all along. This is not only an issue of economics, it obviously supports our economic development, and we absolutely must have this service to grow economically. It's also an issue of equity. And that's why I feel so strongly that it needs to be a public network. I talk to voters every day, and I've talked to voters in our county, in our city, who are in Comcast service zone, but they can't afford the service. We know that a public network will cut this cost for the user, and we know that a public network will make it equitable for everyone who needs the internet, which is everyone. I have terrible internet up here myself, and I know many people in our county do. Again, I just want to say that I think it's been incredibly slow, and I think we can do better.
Okay, thank you. It's now time, candidates, for your 1-minute closing statement. So we'll start with you, candidate Bell.
This reminds me of grade school because my name starts with a B. I was always first and second in line. So I want to close by saying I want to build on the successes that I've had over the last few years. We've been successful in keeping this port nonpartisan. I'm going to continue to do that. I challenge you to look at the PDCs and see where the partisanship is. We've been successful in keeping our climate and our management plans in place. We've been successful in maintaining relationships with key stakeholders, including the tribes, the fishermen, the unions, local businesses, the farmers. If you, again, look at my supporters, you're going to see that every single one of those is represented in a major way with my campaign. I hope to continue the good work. I hope to continue to support the businesses that are around us, and I hope they continue to support me. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Krieger, your response, your closing statement, please.
I'm really proud of my endorsements in this campaign. They represent my values, and they represent the relationships that I'll rely on. All 4 of our state representatives endorse me, as does our county executive. I'm also endorsed by every Democratic organization in Whatcom County. In addition to that, I have the support of 5 major unions, including painters, electrical, teachers, and more. They know that I support workers, and they know that union workers mean higher wages for everyone. Supporting workers supports our economy. I'm also supported by the Washington Conservation Voters and by the Sierra Club because they know how I value protecting our environment. My combination of business skills and passion for the future of our community will make me an excellent port commissioner. I'm not afraid to think outside the box, and I have the resources and energy to see my ideas through. I'm a great collaborator, and I'm excited to work with other community leaders to solve our big problems. I think that's the right temperament for this job.
Hey, thank you. So on behalf of the League of Women Voters, I want to thank the candidates for being here tonight and for being willing to run for public office. Voters, you can find more information about the candidates online at vote411.org and in your voter pamphlet. The ballots will be mailed October 13th. Your ballot must be postmarked or in a ballot drop box before 8 p.m. on November 2nd. Please remember to sign the ballot envelope. And if you're mailing by postal service, we recommend mailing early. Bottom line, please vote. In these local elections, every vote makes a difference. Thank you and good night.
Thank you, Janet.